y'all, at the end, I'm going to make a little announcement. So stand by, and if you want to hear it, just listen all the way to the end. Otherwise, let's get into, I've got 3 encounters I want to share with you today, and all 3 of them are really good. They're short, and they're just packed with information. A couple of them are kind of spooky, and one is very nostalgic. So, all right, here we go. The first one is sent to me by John. He writes, I was invited on a wild boar hunt with a hunting outfitter in East South Carolina near the ocean. I've been before and had great success on my last 2 trips. This time, it was the spring of 1999, and one evening, the guide decided to take us near the edge of the national forest, about 4 miles into the swamp. I was excited to go so deep and felt I was going to get a huge boar that evening. The only way we could get to the area was with an Argo. There were also alligators in the area that weren't around at the time, but I was looking hard for one as I had to get in and out of the Argo to maneuver around some trees. Once we dropped off the hunter before me at his stand, we kept going deeper and deeper into the swamp. It took us around 15 minutes to get to my stand, which was at the end of the trail and next to the FMNF. I got out and climbed into my stand. As I watched the Argo disappear from sight, I heard behind me 3 knocks on a tree around 300 yards away, then a hair-raising scream, and about 5 seconds later to my left, around 500 yards or so, I heard a repeat of the same thing. Now, I have been bow hunting for 31 years and know almost all the sounds in the woods. When my hair stands up on the back of my neck, I knew something was not normal. I got very concerned because I heard that Bigfoot communicate just like that, and the screams were probably from aggression, I assumed. I saw a video with some other hunters talking about it when they hunt for deer, etc., and the Bigfoot creatures will come up around and wait for the shot and then come in and steal the game. While sitting in my stand until dark, I felt I was being watched the whole time. I never thought seeing an Argo coming back to pick me up could be such a beautiful sight. I had my Super Red Hawk 454, but I knew I was probably outmatched with 2 or more adult Bigfoot, and I kept looking over my shoulder every chance I got, just in case I had to protect myself. After I got home, I did some research on the sounds that they make. I will never forget the sounds I heard and will visit the plantation again, but I won't go that far deep into the swamp. Those things are out there. I don't know if they were brought here from another world or some crazy scientist created a monster with an ape human DNA, but being in the swamp around 4 miles deep, it couldn't have been human. No one can possibly scream that loud. Thanks, John. I'll add to that. I grew up in the river bottoms. I'm a river rat. There's 2 types of people, in my view, in the United States. There's Delta people and there's mountain people. And Delta people, some people call us river rats, but especially the people that get out and hunt and stuff in those swamps. And I'm telling you, they're beautiful. It's a beautiful landscape, and the fauna and plants and the water and everything that grows there is beautiful. But once you get out there, the only way, and it's getting close to dark, the only way to get out is by some motorized vehicle, a boat or a Argo or a side-by-side or a four-wheeler. And if it gets dark and you're stuck out there, you are in a jam. You are in a jam, and who knows what walks out in those swamps. So, John, that is a very interesting story from my perspective because I know exactly what you're talking about. Thanks, man. The next story I have is also submitted by a man named John, and he writes, I am 49 years old and have been in the country most of my life. I was in the woods almost from the time I could walk, so I know every creature that lives in the forest and mountains around my home in south central Pennsylvania. I've even seen tracks of a couple of animals that the DCNR and Game Commission say don't exist here, such as wolves and mountain lions. But the story I have to tell you isn't about any of those. It's about an encounter my daughter and I had a couple of summers ago with a Bigfoot. We were hiking in a national forest close to my home. We would do this at least once a week. We always took the same trail, an unused forestry road to be precise. We would walk along the road for about a mile and a half to a spring that ran across it. There we would sit down and rest before we hiked back out. Sometimes we would bring something along to eat, but most of the time we just sat there and listened. I would quiz her as to which animals were making which sounds, or ask her what a track looked like if we saw any. Recently, she had gotten interested in a couple of YouTube channels about Sasquatch and gifting them. On the day in question, we had brought some apples to leave for the local Squatch population. I thought to myself, some raccoon or deer is going to get a free meal, but if it made my daughter happy, what the heck. We had just left the spring when my senses told me that we were being watched. I know that sensation because I have also been in combat. Being hunted is like no other feeling. I stopped and looked around. I didn't see anything, and I turned to catch up with my daughter a few steps ahead of me. That's when I heard a slight coughing sound to our right. My daughter heard it too because I saw her eyes grow about the size of a saucer. "What was that?" she said. I said, "It's just a deer warning the rest of the herd that we're here." I knew that it wasn't a deer, and so did she. "Just keep walking," I told her. We started on again and hadn't gone too much farther when a limb snapped behind us, pretty close but off in the brush. We both stopped and turned towards the sound. We stood there quietly looking into the dense brush for a couple of minutes when I saw movement out of the corner of my eye. Turning my head, I saw a creature standing about 40 yards down the trail from where we had just come. My daughter saw it too. She took a deep breath, but didn't scream like I thought she was going to. We just stood there looking at him. Yes, it was a him. He was about 7 to 8 feet tall, broad in the shoulder, and he was very muscular. His hair was about 3 or 4 inches long and was a rust color. He stood there looking at us. He didn't make a sound. Neither did we. After what felt like an eternity, but really was only a couple of minutes, he raised his left hand with the palm toward us and moved it like he was pushing something. My daughter and me just looked at him, then at each other, and then back at him, and I shrugged. He made the motion again, but this time he grunted softly. This time we got the message. He was telling us it was time for us to go. We turned around and started walking. My daughter wanted to look back, but something told me not to let her, so we just walked to the truck. Once there, and before we could get in, we heard a series of loud whoops coming from the area that we had just exited. We just looked at each other and promised not to tell her mother about this. If her mother had found out, she would never let my daughter in the woods again. We have been back to the area many times since, but have never come across anything else other than one indistinct impression of a footprint that measured roughly 19.5 inches long. Also, I have been there by myself on one occasion. While I didn't see or hear anything, I got the distinct feeling that I was not welcome by myself. John, that is one of the incredible eyewitness, full visual encounters that we get. It's not very common that people actually see the whole body. You know, they'll see the face or the head, or they'll see it crawling on the ground or whatever. You guys, you and your daughter saw the full figure. That's exceptional. I think that's a great story, and I really appreciate you sending it to me, buddy. The last encounter story I want to share with you tonight is nostalgic, and I can almost feel the way the man feels as he writes this to me. He's lost his father, and he's recounting an encounter that his father had, and the man's name is Jody. Jody, I appreciate you sending this in. I lost my dad about 10 years ago, and you've recently lost your father, and I'm really sorry to hear it, and I want to let you know that. But let me get into your story here. The following is an account from my father, who passed away April 9th, 2018. He was never eager to share this, but rather reluctant. As a child, I remember we would watch programs such as In Search of with Leonard Nimoy or Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World. Now, I believe I understand why. He was searching for answers. From the best of my knowledge, the happening occurred in the early 1970s in Hamilton County, Tennessee, where Lookout Creek empties into the Tennessee River into Moccasin Bend. My father and a friend were fishing this familiar spot as they had done multiple times together. While fishing and talking, both young men heard a loud pop as if a limb breaking behind them. What they saw was described congruently as a reddish, mahogany-colored bipedal animal standing and staring at them, not massive in stature, but approximately 5 foot to 5.5 foot tall. They made no moves, but simply held the creature's gaze until it calmly and slowly walked away. Not many years ago, I had grown more interested in my father's description and concluded it could be classified as a skunk ape. I printed off a picture and asked if this was similar to what he saw. He literally looked at the picture for no longer than 2 seconds, slid it away from him, and said yes, and nothing more. I believe he never wanted to have this encounter, and it answers why he kept it to himself for the most part of his life. I have no reason to have ever doubted a single syllable my dad ever spoke, and I believe him as if it were the gospel. Thank you for your program. Jody, that's a short, to the point, great encounter story that you remember from your dad, and it was so nice of you to send it, and I really appreciate it. Hope your family's doing well. I know you all miss him. It gets better, I can tell you that. All right, here's my after video announcement. A few people have said that they appreciated me talking on the last 2 videos and that it adds a personal touch to the program. So here's what I thought I would do. If you have a question about any of these stories, or just, I guess, anything in general, if you'll send me an email, my email address is dixiecryptid@gmail.com. Send me a question, and I'll pick 1 or 2 and answer those at the end of the next few videos. How about that? So pick a story, and if you want to know where I got it or how I came up with it or whatever, obviously you know that where I got the viewer submitted encounters, and those are sent to me, and I actually read them word for word. I might correct some spelling and punctuation, but some of the stories that I've shared with you through the 3 or 4 months that we've done this, there's a lot of questions, and so if you have a specific question, just ask it, and I'll address it at the end of the next video. And we'll just keep doing this. Obviously, I can't answer every question because these videos would wind up being 2 hours long, and I don't do videos that long. So ask a question, I'll answer it, and we'll get to know each other a little better. And also, someone suggested we do a live show. I've wanted to do that, but I don't know how to do it. I think I need a webcam, and I'm going to start shopping for one of those, and you'll see my ugly mug where this voice comes from. You get to know me a little better, and I don't know, maybe we'll show the dogs or something like that. But send down a question. We'll do a live show at some point in this spring maybe, and we'll go from there. Okay, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you all so much for the great comments and the nice, man, you all are the nicest people. And it just makes me want to do this more, and it's very encouraging, and so I really appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to shut up now. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.